1 month after the launch of the highly anticipated Noire, a strange website appeared, LANoireCredits.com. On it were the names of more than 130 developers who were either miscredited or left out of the game entirely. Now this seemed odd because nothing like this had ever really happened before, and so for many players, this was the first clue that something about Noire's development wasn't quite right. When the game was first unveiled by Rockstar nearly 2 decades ago now, people were quickly hooked. It was set in 1947 LA following a war veteran turned detective as he worked to solve cases in a city riddled with crime. On the surface, it was stylish, ambitious and unlike anything else at the time. But beneath all that glamour and the neon lights was a much darker reality. Being plagued by ever-increasing work hours, excessive demands and record-high turnovers. For many on the team, it became their breaking point, with a lot of them even deciding to never return to the games industry altogether. And even with that would still be a huge understatement to the living hell that it made of people who were working on its lives. This is the story of one of the most troubled developments in gaming history. Now before we go any further, I just want to clarify that this game was not made by Rockstar. Even though the game was produced by Rockstar, yes, it was made by a different team, Team Bondi. Team Bondi was an Australian-based development team named after the Bondi Beach in Sydney and was started by a Brendan McNamara. Now I want you to remember this name, right, because he is quite important to how this story is gonna go. Brendan here initially worked for Sony Entertainment's Team Soho, whose last big project, The Getaway, turned out to be a pretty solid success on the PS2. But once that wrapped up, Brendan figured that he wanted to do his own thing instead, so he packed up and decided to head back home to Australia. The opening of Team Bondi was officially announced in 2004, with a lot of the forming members being made up of previous Team Soho employees. With the studio up and running now, they were ready to start working. Having been previous employees of Sony and all, they still had strong ties, and as such, Team Bondi managed to secure a publishing deal with them for their very first game, one that would launch as a console exclusive for the upcoming PlayStation 3. Spoilers, the game did not in fact launch for an upcoming PS3, it launched for a PS3 that was well towards the end of its life. So, what went wrong? Well, for starters, the technology that Brendan McNamara wanted as the centerpiece of the game didn't even exist yet. You see, McNamara didn't just start Team Bondi, he also founded a tech company called Depth Analysis, and its whole purpose was to build a facial capture system that could accurately translate the nuances of an actor's face to in-game animations. Since this was a detective game, the idea was that you'd be able to tell if someone was lying by just studying their expressions. And although this vision was exciting, it was also very ambitious. As the development for this tech kept dragging on, the costs started rising. An anonymous source on Twitter even claimed that Brendan had burned through tens of millions in just a single year. By 2005, the budget had gone way past what Sony was expecting, and so in an effort to cut their losses, Sony decided to pull the plug. The team was left stranded. They had an unfinished game, expensive tech that wasn't ready, and now no one to cover the bills. Luckily for them, it wouldn't be long before someone did decide to come around. In 2006, Rockstar Games would give them a lifeline. They were willing to put in a lot more money too, and so just like that, the studio was back on track. As things were going, it looked like they'd made it past the rough seas and that only smooth sailing lay ahead now. But little did they know, the storm was only just beginning. But before we get to that, I have recently hit 100 subscribers, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. And now, since we have hit our current goal, I guess we'll need another one. Let's say 200 subs? So if you are enjoying this video, please subscribe and let's see how far we can get. Okay, let's get back to the video. In the early days, development was actually described to be pretty enjoyable. Over time though, the mood around the studio began to take a shift for the worse. Management started growing increasingly demanding, sometimes even outright aggressive. And the pressure on the team, it just kept building. The bar was set higher and higher, and when people couldn't keep up, many chose to walk away, while others were simply shown the door. And this is where Brendan McNamara's reputation really started to spiral. According to employees, it was incredibly common for him to scream at whoever was pissing him off right in the middle of the office in front of everyone else. And if the atmosphere wasn't bad enough, the working conditions were even worse. It was quite common for employees to be working 80 to 110-hour weeks. Working overtime and weekends was just the norm. Now normally, when you do work overtime, you are entitled to some overtime pay as well. And although the company did have that in place, even that was set up in a way to make it as unfair to the employees as possible. In their contracts, the clause for overtime payments stated that an employee would only be entitled to it after the project was completed. And so if they were to leave before or be fired, then the pay, it was simply written off. So yeah, not too great. Unsurprisingly, these conditions led to massive turnover rates. Around 100 staff members are estimated to have left during the game's development. As people burned out, they were replaced by new hires, only for them to now get thrown into the exact same mess, and so the cycle just continued. Things were also starting to break down before Team Bondi management and Rockstar themselves. Turns out by this point, Rockstar wasn't just publishing the game, they were basically keeping it alive. As one former employee puts it, they continued to sink money into Noire, and without their continued support, Team Bondi would have gone under several years ago. Rockstar was also making massive contributions to the development as well, with their producers being increasingly influential over time. And even though they were essentially dragging the game across the finish line, that's where part of the conflict came from as well. The more Rockstar got involved, the less control Team Bondi had. And Team Bondi's management absolutely hated this. They hated that Rockstar was taking over so much of the creative side. On Rockstar's end, they weren't impressed either. They didn't like how Team Bondi was being run, and after all the stories about the toxic work culture started leaking, their patience started running out. At one point, Rockstar were even considering turning Team Bondi into Rockstar Sydney, but the more they worked with McNamara and his team, the more they realized how terrible of an idea this would have been. By late development, the relationship had completely broken down. Internal emails show McNamara furious about Rockstar pulling out of an E3 showing, and in another one, he accidentally sent the entire studio an email that was only meant for one person, with the message that made it pretty clear how much animosity there was. By some miracle, on the 17th of May in 2011, the game finally launched, and it did pretty well. Noire got great reviews, it sold millions, and for a lot of players it felt like something completely new. Even though the game was a hit, Team Bondi couldn't keep going. They had spent too much money on this, and with Rockstar stepping away, combined with the employees not wanting to work under this leadership anymore, everything that had been holding the studio together just fell apart. And so not long after the launch, McNamara's studio completely collapsed.